I'm live, it says. See, here's the thing though, I was live before. Somebody take over the roll call. Oh no, he's lost his network, says John. Well, here, I'll do it, John. I see John. There's Webb, there's Eugene, there's Bill, there's Hank, there's Donna. There's Chuck, there's Brian, there's Rick. Hello, Rick. Rick is here on a rare night off, and there's Roger. And that's everybody who said anything so far. Maybe more people will. We'll find out after because, I got to do the thing where I do the thing and I, talk to the recording instead of you guys, but stick around because I'll talk to you guys later. There's Gary, by the way. Gary is also here, and Matthew. Nate, by the way, sends his regards. He was telling me that it's, basically too late. There's Jaded Fox. Well, I haven't seen you in forever. Yeah, so it's basically too late for him. Not, in general, just at night because it's like 12:30 or 11:30 in the UK or something. And says it's almost Friday. Kind of is Friday for me. Don't forget, everybody, we're not doing the live thing tomorrow afternoon because I got some stuff I got to do. But yeah, we're doing it today, and then we'll do it next week. And why don't we go ahead and do this now? I won't let a little thing like the fact that I don't even know how I'm starting the show stop me from starting the show. Yeah, I'll just make something up. Like all the other shows. All right, hold on. Man, I've messed this up. Hey, Ken's here. Okay, now we can start. And Rob. Okay, now we can begin. Right, here we go. Well, I guess we'll talk about what we should have talked about. It's Thursday, the 17th of December, 2020, and this is macOS Ken Live. I was so full of joie de vivre. So full of joie de vivre yesterday. Remember that? Hi, everybody. It's Ken Ray welcoming you into another edition of macOS Ken Live, a thing that we usually do live Monday through Friday, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, other times, other places. We're entering a weird period for this show. Starting tomorrow, actually, I'm not going to be here for the live thing. macOS Ken will still be there, and in a few minutes we'll still be there, but the live thing is not gonna. We'll talk more about all of that later. Second half of the show, I got some feedback. 3 pieces of feedback from 2 people. Brian was pulling double duty, but they were both good bits of feedback, so we will talk about them in the second half of the show. First half of the show, though, as much as I would like to avoid it, I don't think we can. Avoid talking about the Facebook thing. It's completely disingenuous. I'm sorry. I probably should have led up to that. Let's try to keep a focus on what it is that Facebook is angry about. And I say this not because you can't, because I can't, because it's so easy to lose sight of what the Facebook fight is about. The Facebook fight is about Apple saying, man, companies are tracking people from app to app to app in ways that they really. Here's the thing, Apple isn't even saying they shouldn't be doing it. Apple is going to go ahead and let that continue to happen as long as we're cool with it. So something coming up that was supposed to happen in iOS 14, abbreviation is ATT, not to be confused with AT&T, which I do all the time. ATT is App Tracking Transparency. Basically what happens, and I don't know how it works because we haven't seen it in action yet, and I guess it's not going to be happening with iOS 14.4 because the betas for that are out, and I haven't heard that that's something that's showing up yet either. But basically, when you go from one app to another app, it's going to ask you, hey, this app wants to follow your actions on that next thing. Are you cool with that? And if you're cool with that, you can say sure. And if you're not cool with that, you can say no. And Facebook first try to play it cool and say, this is really going to mess up a lot of other people's business models. Not our business model, because, hey, we're Facebook. We're huge. But there are lots of small businesses and developers that are going to be messed up by this. Could you not? Or could you postpone it until we find, something else to do to sort of make up for potential loss? Now, honestly, when I first heard that, I thought they're looking for a workaround. And maybe they're not looking for a workaround. Maybe their concern really was we have all this water flowing in because we don't have ATT. AT&T, ATT is going to block some of that water. So we need to find another way to get other water in here. Maybe they weren't looking to subvert. Maybe they were looking to, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, make arrangements for something else to serve its customers, the small businesses that advertise with it, all that stuff. It's also possible they were just being completely disingenuous because when Facebook and some publishers in Europe and a few other people said, "Could you give us more time so that we can get our ducks in a row?" Apple said, "Yeah, okay, we'll do that. We'll go first of the year instead of when iOS 14 is released. That's when we'll go ahead, or not first of the year, but early in 2021 is when we'll put in ATT." It begins to look less like Facebook was looking for some sort of solution for small businesses and was instead mounting a smear campaign. Because what this is really about is Apple saying, we want to give people more of a choice. We want to make it clearer to people that this tracking is happening so that they can either allow it to happen or so that they can say no. But Facebook now has been running full page ads in major newspapers like the Wall Street Journal saying they're just fighting for the small business. I think I went off. So if you are only listening to the audio podcast, I regularly go and talk to everybody in the chat room after the audio podcast, just, shooting the proverbial stuff. And that whole thing about buying ads in the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Wall Street Journal saying that we're fighting for small business, I don't want to tell them how to succeed, but they're doing it wrong. Because what they should have done was bought a bunch of little papers around the country. Because you know what? The Wall Street Journal would have written about that, and they would have gotten the Wall Street Journal notice, and it would have looked genuine. The New York Times would have written about that. The Washington Post would have written about that. USA Today would have written about that. The big papers would have written about the fact that instead of spending gobs on full page ads in 3 of the biggest papers in the country, Facebook put its money where its mouth was and went to small businesses or smaller papers, assuming they can find any, smaller publications around the country and spent their money there. I still wouldn't have believed them, but at least they would have had more of a case. So a piece from The Verge yesterday said Facebook claims Apple's changes will be devastating to small businesses that rely on its ad network to generate sales. The newspaper ads direct small businesses to Facebook's Speak Up for Small Business site, where a series of business owners speak out. And you know what? It still doesn't matter. Okay, that is sad and that is tragic if true. And I want something good to happen for those small businesses. But I still have a right to know whether I'm being tracked. I heard one time about a puppy that had distemper. I still want to know whether I'm being tracked. You can throw all kinds of sad stories at me. You can all throw all kinds of whatabouts at me. None of them are going to make it okay for you to track me without my knowledge. I mean, the question I have, honestly, is how did this go on as long as it did? And so either way, now Apple has this technology where they can do this. Why they couldn't do it before, I don't know. But now they have this technology where they can. They're ready to go with it. People said, can you give us more time? Apple said, sure. And now Apple is being vilified for wanting to make sure that I know that I'm being tracked and giving me the option to not be. Apple responded to Facebook saying that we believe that this is a simple matter of standing up for our users. Users should know when their data is being collected and shared across other apps and websites, and they should have the choice to allow that or not. App tracking transparency in iOS 14 does not require Facebook to change its approach to tracking users and creating targeted advertising. It simply requires that they give users choice. There it is, right there. You know what, Facebook? You think this is good? Fine. Tell people you're doing it. And if they also agree that it's good, you can keep right on doing it. You can keep right on making that money. Provide them a service that makes it worth it to them to be tracked, and they'll happily be tracked. We'll all do that. We will all trade so much if we see value in the thing for which we're trading. Instead, they're being vilified. I mean, so Facebook came out again today, actually, and today the problem is it's going to make the internet worse for everybody. If they give me a choice about whether or not I want to be tracked, the internet's going to be worse for everybody, is what Facebook is saying. Facebook is focusing now. This is according to Engadget. No, because I left out that part. So they ran a full page ad on Wednesday. Apple responded, and then they ran a full page ad on Thursday, again in the same 3 papers. I would imagine there will be one tomorrow because, by the set. According to Engadget, Facebook is focusing on how it believes the upcoming policy change will impact users everywhere. It explains that if small websites such as cooking blogs, why cooking blogs, dude? Why not Star Trek blogs? What's wrong with comic blogs? I ask you. Cooking? It explains that if small websites such as cooking blogs can't make ends meet with ads, creators will be forced to start charging subscription or in-app fees. That development will make the internet much more expensive and reduce high-quality free content, the ad reads. So I guess Facebook is against small businesses making money online. That's disingenuous, by the way. You want to call me out for that, feel free. Although I don't think Facebook really cares about small businesses. That's just what I'm feeling here. Really quickly, there is one sizable company on Apple's side, and I'm sure there are plenty of others as well, but there was one that I came across, Mozilla, actually earlier this week, before the whole Facebook kerfuffle, or before the whole ad campaign from Facebook. Mozilla earlier this week launched a site with the message, "We need a massive outpouring of support for Apple's decision to help strengthen its resolve and protect consumer privacy. Sign this thank you and let Apple know consumers are eagerly anticipating anti-tracking protection on iPhone." Here's what's weird. They don't need that. Apple doesn't need that. I'm kind of curious what Mozilla's game is, unless they want to be seen as being on the side of the angels in this. Because Apple's resolve does not seem to have wavered. I am curious why Apple didn't go ahead and put it in iOS 14, unless they were really concerned that it was really going to mess some people up. Having gone ahead, though, and said, you know what? You asked, we answered. We will go ahead and hold off. We will go ahead and hold off is actually paradoxical, but you get the idea. Having said, we'll hold off to make this easier for you. And they're just gumming up the works. And so all this other stuff is happening. But the thing that I'm having trouble remembering is it's still all about app tracking transparency. That is what this is ultimately all about. A bunch of newspaper publishers have joined the Coalition for App Fairness, which is actually, this is where it gets confusing. And that's why I want to keep saying it's all about that. Coalition for App Coalition for App Fairness is a different thing. They're basically upset about the 30% cut that Apple gets. Now, what's weird to me is a whole bunch of newspapers joined the Coalition for App Fairness yesterday. And there's a lot of stuff there that I wonder about. If you have a subscription in the App Store, if I offer a subscription, for that first year, Apple gets 30% of that subscription. But if I can hold you for over a year, Apple's commission goes down to 15%. The changes that are coming up for small businesses in the App Store mean that Apple is only going to charge 30% for groups making over $1 million a year. So I guess the argument from the newspapers is they can't hold people for a year, so it won't go down to 15%, but they are making over $1 million a year. And if they're a newspaper, I hope they are, because I know they have a lot of infrastructure. They have a lot of overhead. They have a lot of people if they're a quality news organization. I really just don't understand what they're doing here. In a piece from TechCrunch announcing it yesterday, Digital Content Next is the name of the organization that sort of represent a number of news organizations, including the AP, the New York Times, NPR, ESPN, Vox, the Washington Post, Meredith, Bloomberg, NBC, Universal, the Financial Times, and a whole bunch of other ones. I'm assuming they just represent their digital efforts, but they sound kind of big and important. Digital Content Next says it is pleased to join the Coalition for App Fairness, working to establish a fair and competitive digital landscape. The premium publisher members of DCN enjoy trusted, direct relationships with consumers who don't expect intermediaries to impose arbitrary fees and rules which limit their ability to consume the news and the entertainment they love. Can I run free ads in any of their papers? Can I? They've got editors. There are intermediaries all over the place. Sorry. Can I run free ads in their papers? I'm guessing not, because ads are how they make their money. You know how Apple makes its money off of subscriptions, off of somebody subscribing through? It's the 30% commission. I feel certain that the sales department would not be happy to give me free ads. If you would, though, call me, because I got some stuff to advertise. What's weird is, like, okay, so Apple takes a 30% commission off Spotify, right? And Spotify wants to tell people in the app, hey, you know, you can get this cheaper if you go to Spotify.com. And Apple says, well, no, you can't do that in the app. These are newspapers. They're newspapers with websites, with Twitter accounts. These people are in communication. Are you telling me you can't use your newspaper to advertise the fact that you can get a cheaper subscription and then log it into your iPhone or iPad? This is what you do. You are a purveyor of information and you have ad pages. And I know ads cost money, but probably the newspapers could get a deal from their own ad department. Yeah, the whole thing strikes me as disingenuous. And I guess that's the part that bothers me the most. One last thing. Facebook has signed on to the Fortnite case. What are they doing there? Facebook is supporting Fortnite maker Epic Games in its lawsuit against Apple, marking another low in the relationship between the two tech giants. This is according to a piece from TechCrunch. Cult of Mac. According to Steve Satterfield, a director of privacy and public policy at Facebook, the social network company thinks that it is really important that the court understand far-reaching impact of Apple's unfair policies. Are you like me? Are you surprised to find that there's a head of privacy at Facebook? And what do they have to do with the Epic case? Nothing. App tracking transparency. That's what this is about. It is about you getting to decide whether you're tracked when using your iPhone. I'm honestly upset that Apple is giving them the time. I was excited when I heard that that was coming in iOS 14. I don't understand. If it is bad that I'm being tracked, why is it okay to let it happen for another 6 months so that these people can keep making money off of this thing that they know we don't want because they're fighting tooth and nail to make sure that we're not asked whether it's okay with us? Would you believe half an hour before this show, I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about? I seem to have had no trouble. Hey, we're going to do some listener feedback in just a minute. First, I want to remind you about some other stuff that I do. Did the episode of The Checklist last night that I talked about. It's kind of a bummer. Got two things happening right now. Christmas is in 1 week and 1 day as I record this. And so since we're not going out to the mall as much, or any store really, we're ordering things. And that means, you know, a certain amount of uncertainty. When is that thing going to get here? Who's going to deliver it? What happened to it? I mean, first of all, you have to make sure stuff's not getting stolen off your porch. But second, you have to worry about scam artists saying, hey, there's a problem with your delivery, because it's the kind of thing they do. There are a number of interesting scams that are happening. Nick Leone, who writes for Secure Mac, actually spent some time with me talking about that one. So that's the first half of the checklist. And the second half of it was about all the scams coming up around the COVID-19 vaccine, because, you know, no good deed is not a chance to trick somebody out of money or personal information. So not a fun show, but an informative show, I think, and, you know, important as shows go. The show is called The Checklist. You can find that wherever you find podcasts. You can also find it at the website, securemac.com/checklist. And again, this is one to tell friends and family about. It's, you know, you may know all of this stuff. You've got people in your life who don't. I mean, you just do. And I'm not saying anything about the people in your life. I'm saying we all know enough people that there's somebody who will just, stumble into something bad. The whole reason that we do the checklist is because we want to keep that from happening. So securemac.com/checklist, or look for the checklist by Secure Mac wherever you get podcasts. Episode 211, by the way, yesterday. We should have done it in volumes. Should have been like year one, episode whatever, because then it would be volume 4, which sounds much cooler than 211. Right, let's do a bit of feedback and get out of here. Continuing with the AT&T thing, Jeremy wrote in saying, listening to the conversations about Facebook taking out full page ads against Apple and AT&T, ATT made me wonder. Apple pushed back app tracking transparency because whichever it says, ATT, because companies said they needed time to integrate it, including Facebook. Should Apple come back and tell the small businesses that Facebook is helping, that AT&T is going live in the next iOS update? And if there are any concerns with implementing it, those small businesses should thank Facebook, since it clearly lied about what they wanted to do. Apple pointing out that Facebook is the bad guy and potentially hurting the people it claims it wants to help would be funny to me. So says Jeremy. Yeah, the dark part of me would take a little bit of delight in that. But honestly, they just need to stay focused on what they're focused on. AT&T, Facebook is going to throw so much stuff at the wall between now and when this happens. They're looking for something to stick. And it's possible that they're throwing so much stuff at the wall that they know even if nothing really sticks, the wall's still going to get dirty. Apple just needs to maintain its, messaging focus. This is about you being tracked and having the option to not be. Honestly, the best thing that they've said so far is, look, Facebook can keep doing this. They just have to let people know they're doing it. That's it. They just have to give people a choice. Man, Facebook knows what they're doing is unpopular. If they're coming at it this hard with so much other crap, and they've tried to say the whole time, it's not about us. It's not about us. It's about the small businesses. It's about the little guy. It's about how bad the internet's going to be, but it's not us. That is just sounding less and less likely every minute. Brian had a comment on the Cydia story that we talked about. When was that? Was that earlier this week or late last week? I can't remember, because I've also talked about it in a few minutes with Rob Walsh. Cydia basically is the App Store before the App Store. When Apple had no App Store, a bunch of people figured out how to jailbreak the iPhone. Jay Freeman, I believe is the guy's name behind Cydia, was like, hey, you know what I could do? I could sell applications that people could put on the iPhone. And while Apple has never tried to stop Cydia, they have tried to plug the holes that made jailbreaking possible, which would, of course, make Cydia kind of useless. And so Brian was saying that he had some comparisons that immediately came to mind as far as the Cydia lawsuit. Oh, because that's the part I left out. Cydia is suing Apple for anti-competitive practices or monopolistic practices or something. Basically, they're saying that Apple controls the market for apps on iOS, and that's wrong. What Brian wanted to know, or pointed out anyway, third parties can't use GM's OnStar system for custom programmed third-party services. Do they have a monopoly? Tesla is about to roll out their fully autonomous software package. They won't allow third parties to sell their own replacement software. Do they have a monopoly? Cable and TV networks have sued Arrow roughly a decade ago, and recently Lowcast and others, they've also sued, who they feel violate their monopolies. Even when the programming broadcast by Arrow was obtained through their on-the-air antennas, can't buy a third-party replacement TV box for my Spectrum or Comcast television box that keeps the cable TV experience and harmed customers with bad software for decades. Basically, he's asking if that's a monopoly. I believe those are actually sanctioned monopolies, right? Because they went in and laid the wires. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying I think that's I think that's acknowledged, even if it's not ultimately right. I want the protections offered by the App Store, and I'm willing to pay more, but am I really? Asked Brian. What if Apple discontinued the App Store? Developers would be forced to create their own marketplaces that come with their own development and operating costs. There would be many, and that would lead to customer segmentation. If there were 2 or 3 conglomerate replacement app stores run by developers, many customers would not find the developers, and so on and so on and so on. Yeah, honestly, my biggest problem is not Cedia. I talked about this on In a Few Minutes with Rob Walsh. My biggest problem isn't Cedia. They may be fine. I may trust them entirely. But if you allow Cedia, then you have to allow every other one out there. And then I start to worry about, it's $3 on the App Store. It's only $1 on Cedia. It's only 33 cents on, Joe's App Shack, right? Who's concerned about my protection at that point? I don't know. This debate's going to go on. Brian did have one other thought, by the way. This was a separate email. Brian, pulling double duty. I had a thought about the AirPods Max issue that I told you about yesterday. This was the one where some people in Canada were finding out that their AirPods Max were being returned. I said to Apple, but I guess they're going back to Foxconn. I mean, would they go back to where they came from, or would they be routed someplace else? There is speculation that it has to do with labeling on those boxes because there are the lithium ion batteries, I guess, in the AirPods Max. And it's possible they weren't labeled properly, and in some sort of scam that showed up. Not scam. In some sort of scan that showed up, and so they got sent back because they were hazardous. Brian's concerned that this sounds like it only happened to a few people. That should make us all worried that the vast majority of headphones were actually delivered to the customers with the risk to customers that caused the others to be returned. Yeah, I guess. I mean, the problem is that's all speculation at this point. Neither Apple nor UPS have said what the deal was. I'm going to say something that's going to sound completely ridiculous. It is possible that a printer malfunctioned and was not readable properly on the labels that were put on there and got sent out. I mean, we could be talking about a seriously tiny number of people. I personally haven't heard from anybody who did not receive their AirPods Max. Then again, I've only heard from one person who did. So, if that becomes a thing, that becomes a thing. Although we seriously have bigger things to worry about. And I don't mean Apple people. I mean SolarWinds. I haven't even started reading that story because I want to sleep someday. And that one sounds bad. Hey, if you're in the chat room, I'd love it if you stay in the chat room. I will be by there momentarily. If you're not in the chat room, it'd be great if you were, although I'm not going to tell you to come back tomorrow because we won't be here. We generally speaking, though, Monday through Friday, 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern, probably only like 3 days next week, probably only 3 days the week after. This is going to be a bit irregular as our macOS can, and probably in a few minutes for the next couple of weeks because it's the holiday season. macOS can tomorrow, though, and in a few minutes tomorrow as well. And I will talk to you soon. Would you believe I had no idea what I was going to talk about before the show started? Man, I could have been a preacher. As long as you upset me about something, then I could turn it on. What are we up to? Hey, Charles is here. Charles was not here for the roll call. Oh, Nate did get here. I sent everybody your regards, Nate, and there you were. Yeah, I know, Chuck. It would have been, you know what? It would have been worth the PR money. So I suggested earlier that Facebook should have bought it in small papers around the country. Chuck says, going to small papers would have required effort. That's too much trouble for Facebook, he says. Do small businesses understand what Facebook does to provide them with the info and the views they get? See, I think this isn't for them because honestly, I know somebody who runs a small business. She is a single proprietor of a store, grew it from an Etsy shop. Haven't talked to her in a few years, but I do believe that she's the kind of person who would not want to be tracked by Facebook. this is a Faustian bargain. I don't think that she would be like, well, I don't like it for me, but I like it for everybody else. I could be wrong. Maybe she would be. Maybe she would be fine with that. Eugene says that he has bought Facebook ads for a nonprofit. They don't make that stuff clear. They just give you topics and locales to target, no explanation of what it entails or what that entails. Yeah, we bought them for, I say we bought them. My partner on Mission Log back in the day would occasionally buy Facebook ads. Well, it was he would pay basically to bump our own posts, which I guess is not the same thing as buying an ad. And it's actually a bit absurd that it's like, oh, so join Facebook and you can post information. You say, yay. And then Facebook says, but if you want people to see that information, you're horrible. Rick says small businesses with great service have loyal customers who will let their friends know about it, possibly even on Facebook with no tracking necessary. Well said, sir. See, that's the thing. Well, it's like I said before, people will happily trade one thing for another thing. They're just using fear tactics right now. They're using scare tactics, with the side of it's even worse than the whole we don't want to tax billionaires because I might be a billionaire one day, right? You could have a small business. Do you want Apple to run your small business into the ground? Okay, well, do you have a small business, first of all? And second, again, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about privacy. Paul says Mozilla, it's basically what I said, they're trying to be on the side of the angels. Mozilla is trying to be seen as a private browser company. That's kind of funny. I'm not saying they're not. I'm sorry, I was confusing it with something else. I apologize. That it's a company that sees privacy as important and encourage people to use their browser. Yeah, well, that's really the thing, isn't it? Newspapers have online presence and probably use tracking too, says Eugene. You, sir, are probably right. God, I really do feel for the small town papers, though. Have you tried going to one of their sites lately? You get one article, maybe 5 ads will pop up so that you're reading, like that much of actually the article that you're reading, and the rest of it's just, giant ads screaming at you. For a local Ford dealership that you'll never visit because you're not from there. Bill says he feels for newspapers. They're in a tough spot. Remember when they wanted Google to pay them? Australia is still trying that. Yeah, they're in a horrible spot. They absolutely are. If anybody's positioned, though, to make their case, it's newspapers, I would think. Oh, Ken had to take off. Oh, time to light the menorah. Happy Hanukkah. Well, he's gone, so I can't even ask him. Is today the last day of Hanukkah, or is that tomorrow? And did I just say Hanukkah like I was from Boston? Classifieds are how they used to make money. Craigslist took that. Ah, there's the real enemy. Nate says Fortnite seems to be dead with the 12-year-old. It's all Roblox and Among Us. Yeah. A couple of kids around here, neither of whom have ever given a wet slap about Fortnite. I'll tell you, I thought about playing Fortnite, but only after Apple, nixed it. I thought about downloading it to the Xbox, and then I realized, well, I don't really care that much. I mean, I'm kind of curious about it, but, well. Charles says, I'm pretty certain that there is no coordinated action, but it's really amazing how many companies are jumping onto the Apple antitrust dog pile. Yeah, it's what makes the whole Cedia thing actually kind of interesting to me, too. I feel like if anybody has a case, Cedia has a case, but I don't know that anybody has a case. Wow, I love that clacking noise that's happening from my coffee. Sorry about that. John Deere locked down their equipment for years. I've heard that too. Charles, honestly, I know I've mentioned this on this show before. Charles says so many companies seeing an opportunity to take advantage or at least air their grievances. That's what it felt like was happening this summer. That dog and pony show on Capitol Hill. And I will say again, there is absolutely room for regulation in big tech. They should be eyed. I don't want to necessarily say they should be eyed with suspicion, but they should at least be monitored. They should be watched because what they do has a tremendous impact on both current events and the future. Mostly, though, what I heard was both Democrats and Republicans saying, boy, tech, somebody ought to do something about those guys. Vote for me. And I'll tell you again in 2 years that somebody ought to do something about those guys. Feels like I could be wrong. Then again, I'm close to tech. I'm sitting right in front of tech. Now that I think about it, I'm very, very close to it. Jaded Fox says even SF Gate for the SF Chronicle is horrible. Yeah. Horrible. I mean, that's the thing. I know somebody who has a small blog, does not get a tremendous amount of traffic, but is now making, I can't remember the last time I heard, somewhere between $25 and $50 a week, just from having turned on Google ads on their blog, on their small blog. And it's not the same thing, I know, but I mean, I haven't bought a paper in forever. When I buy a paper, I buy the Friday New York Times. I like the Friday New York Times. I haven't bought it, obviously, since the pandemic started. I like the Friday New York Times because it talks about all the art shows and it talks about all the theater stuff. And I feel certain that section of the New York Times is down a bit. It became part of my, weekend, whatever. I can't even tell you the name of my local paper if there is one. It's probably the Los Angeles Times, and I don't live in Los Angeles. That's probably the nearest local paper, is my guess. Or maybe the San Diego Tribune. I don't live near San Diego either. Is it the San Diego Tribune? Yeah, I feel for them. I feel for them. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking about, like, how do I consume my news? I am actually subscribed to 2 newspapers online. I subscribe to the Washington Post and the New York Times. I'm gonna cancel one or both of them because I've stopped reading them. I bought them because I wanted to have access to them, but I can't think of the last time I went to either of their sites or either of their apps. So I'm probably gonna go ahead and kill both, and then it's gonna really annoy me the first time I actually go back to try to read an article there. Apple News Plus does an okay enough job, and now I have that with Premiere or the premium version, whatever. Yes, I feel for them. I feel for them. Apple's 30% commission versus 15% commission is not going to save newspapers. And I worry, honestly, about them coming out publicly on this, because do you then have to start questioning? There were a number of articles that I read. People are just accepting. A number of articles I read are just accepting that the Coalition for App Fairness is what it says it is. It was started by Epic to stir up muck against Apple because of the fight with Fortnite, right? And they can say all the other stuff that they want to say, but we knew it was coming because there were rumors that Epic was going around courting other tech companies about joining some sort of organization that would fight Apple. Charles mentioned earlier the dog pile. I mean, yeah, it's only going to get higher, apparently. Apple has offered a decent number of concessions just this year as well. There's the going from the 30% to the 15%. There is delaying ATT. Everybody wants what they want. I get that. I want what I want. I'm not big enough to just be able to stand there and say, "Give me what I want." Right? Epic thinks it is. Facebook thinks it is. What I want may not be right. What Epic wants may not be right. And it may have been right had Apple gone a different way, but the rules are the rules. Try breaking the rules in Fortnite. I went and read an article about a guy who was using some sort of assistive tech that's actually banned in competition play in Fortnite, but he was using it just to demonstrate something on YouTube. And he had like 1 million followers on YouTube as a Fortnite player, and he was bounced from the game for using this assistive technology that he wasn't even using in gameplay. There's Fortnite. How do they feel about breaking the rules? It depends on whose rules they are. And that was dude's livelihood, right? He's got over 1 million people on YouTube. He's making money on YouTube, except suddenly he can't do the thing that was making him money on YouTube. It's fine. He started playing another game. He actually ended up with more followers. So that worked out well for Fortnite, I guess. That's terrible. For what it's worth, says Webb, it's not just small papers. My hometown paper, the Kansas City Star, just sold their building and their printing will be done in Des Moines, Iowa, and trucked in every day. Yeah, when I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, there was a morning paper and an evening paper. 2 separate papers, not just one edition, or not just 2 editions of the same paper. And a lot of people, I remember when I was a kid, a lot of people said, Nashville doesn't need 2 papers. They could do well with 1, because the last time I was there and picked up the Tennessean, which is the morning paper, and it was the one that survived of the 2. It's mostly like a skinned edition of USA Today, because they're Gannett now. Gannett, however you say it. Yeah, it's all kind of terrible. We should all go outside and play. Somebody should make like some kind of battle royale game, but instead of like, building walls and shooting each other, we just hug. Virtually, of course, because, mask up and wash your hands and stay the hell away from me. Brian says he remembers having 2 newspapers, a morning and an afternoon. Are you in Nashville, Brian? Because, yeah, it was the Nashville Banner was the afternoon paper and the Tennessean was the morning paper. Go to Boston, they still have the Globe and the Herald, I think. Oh, Arizona. Yeah, I can't speak to that. Hugs Royale. There it is. Eugene gets the last word. Hugs Royale. You start developing that, Eugene, and I'll take like a 10% commission. I'm gonna go turn this into a thing, and I'm gonna go do some other stuff. Yeah, I'll miss you guys tomorrow. I know that sounds crazy, but I'll miss you guys tomorrow. But we'll be back here Monday. All of you, take care.